Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. My friends, today we are going to explore this topic, why we need mindfulness. So, in our previous sessions, we get some idea about what is mindfulness, and especially about we learned about Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And we will also explore more about mindfulness as well as why we need mindfulness. So, before we get into this, I would like to share with you, my friends, very special and most important teaching in Buddhist teachings. So, where that Buddha teach about the suffering. Before Buddha searching for a solution for the suffering, so he investigated about what exactly that we have to suffer. So let's see what are they. So Buddha taught us, my friends, there are three types of sufferings. First, dukkha, which means dukkha stands for the suffering in Buddhist language. So dukkha, which means suffering of pain. Okay. And the second is viparinama dukkha, which means suffering of change. And the third type of suffering is sankhara dukkha, which means suffering of formations. Now, what exactly is suffering of pain? Now, the Buddha say this is the obvious suffering from physical and mental pain. Now, my friends, while we spend our life, time to time, we feel some of like bodily pains, such as after a tiring work at the end of the day, we might feel some painful feelings in our body. So this is one type of suffering, the physical suffering in the suffering of pain. And again, we suffer from mental pain, which means time to time we might get anxiety, and sometimes we get anger and some distractive thoughts. So these are in the mental pain. So together, both these physical and mental sufferings are in the suffering of pain, according to the Buddhist teachings. So that is the obvious suffering that we experience as physical and mental pain. But again, there is the second type of suffering, Buddha say the viparinama dukkha, which means suffering of change, the distress caused by the impermanence of joyful experiences, because they are the cause for the arising of pain when they change. Now, whatever in our life that we interact with has this changing nature. For an example, let's say when we watch a movie or listening to a beautiful song, or even we taste a very delicious food, it has an end. It has a kind of change. So whenever that it stops and it reaches to its final moment, we suffer by that because it was changed. We feel happiness because of that excitement which it has, but at the end there is a ongoing suffering. There arises a kind of suffering because of that, because of the change. In a broader sense, every one of us and all everyone who lives with us has this nature of change. So we grow older. So that is also a result of change. And also the people around us change. Their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, and even their life itself change by the time. So they also reach to their maturity and they reach to their old age, and maybe they die, so as us. So this is a result of suffering of change. Now the Buddha say next, Sankhara Dukkha, which means suffering of formations. Now, my friends, this is a very deep teaching by the Buddha. Buddha say the deep existential dissatisfaction arising from the unstable and conditioned nature of life is called the suffering of formations. The suffering produced by all conditioned phenomena. So in Buddhism, it is understood that everything in this world, everything in our internal world or in outside world has its own conditions. So there is a unique, specific causes which created this life, this being, and every other things. Even our psychophysical mechanism, our body and mind also has underlying conditions. Because of this, our body and mind subjected to change. So if we deep down into our life, we will see that there is a specific conditions for our mind and body. And as a result, what is going on with us is the constant change, more precisely, the constant arising and passing. Let's say we go deep into our body, so we see it's in a constant arising and passing. Our feelings, happiness, sadness, or neutral feeling, they also have a kind of arising and passing. It's very subtle, but it's ongoing every moment. So it's a flux of continuous changing in our life. So this is what is called the suffering of formations, because everything are formed, everything are fabricated, but it is by a condition. So that is why there exists the birth of the other sufferings, the dukkha dukkha, which means suffering of pain. Why we suffer from our body and mind time to time is because of the suffering of formations. Why we suffer from suffering of change is also because of that continuous change, arising and passing away. So this is the most deepest teaching about the suffering that Buddha taught. Now we are exploring why we need mindfulness. So we'll get to that after we go a little bit more. Sankhara dukkha, the same one, the last one, Sankhara dukkha refers to the subtle, pervasive suffering that arises simply because all formations conditioned. Even when we are not experiencing physical pain or emotional distress, there is a background sense of unease or unsatisfactoriness because everything we experience is unstable and subject to change. Our eye, our ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, they all have this nature of impermanence. They are arising and passing. Even the neutral feeling we experience has constant arising and passing, which proves the impermanence. Now, for an example, let's say, my friends, usually that we go to a peaceful places when we are getting distracted by our surroundings. Sometimes when we feel some stress in our life, we decide to go to a deep forest or maybe in front of a lake, and we'll keep staring at the rippling of the lake so that we feel some neutral feeling. We don't have any like greed or aversion in that particular moment, but we mostly interacted with neutral, a balanced feeling. But even that neutral feeling is not permanent. Even that we seek our balance in that particular neutral feeling, even that neutral feeling cannot last forever. Even that feeling is arising and passing. So if we were able to develop our mindfulness and focus it to our feelings, to see exactly what's going on with the feeling of neutral or either happiness or sadness, we'll see that all these feelings are constantly changing. They are arising and passing. But we don't see that as long as we don't have mindfulness. Have you seen there are some times on the ground that we see the ants? They are going as a line. Now, sometimes we have seen like there are black ants, they are going on the ground one after another. But when we see from the distance, we see it like a string, like a black string. But if we were to zoom out and look much more deeply and go closely, we will see that these ants, though that it appears to be a line, but it is that they are going one after another and they are doing it constantly. And that's why we see it from the distance. It's like a line, like a black line. But when we go closer, we see it's one after another, one after another. So the same way our feelings, we feel happy feeling, we feel sad feeling, we feel neutral feeling, but when we go in deeply, we'll see it's a one after another, one after another. It's dependent on the conditions, the contact. So that's how we feel. Say that we are enjoying a beautiful song. So when the sound reaches to our ears, so we feel that happy feeling. But if we were to be focused to that only to the feeling, and if we can single out every other thing, and if we will be able to take only the feeling, we'll see it's a constantly changing. It's in a flux of constant moving, constant changing. So this is what we need to realize in our life. Even the neutral feeling we experiencing has constant arising and passing, which proves the impermanence. So as the neutral feeling. Now the Buddha say there are some worlds such as Rupavachara Brahma worlds. Here the world refers to the realms, like higher heavenly realms. Buddha said there is a one realm, a higher heavenly realm. It is free from suffering of pain and also suffering of change for certain extent. The first suffering, the mental and physical pain, and also the second suffering, suffering of change, such as changing of the excitement we are interacting with. But in this heavenly realm, Buddha say they can escape from that pain, that two pains, for certain extent. Why is that? What's the reason for this? Because there are beings in this world with no illness and has long life. If we were to have a very good health and have a long lifespan, we can escape from first two sufferings. Because say that we feel bodily and mental pain, so we can escape from that by indulge in sensory pleasures. We can go to the indulgence in sense pleasures so that we can escape from that as long as we don't have a critical health issue. And again, when there is long life, we don't see much of our loved ones getting old because we have a long life. And we don't see that we are growing old because we have a long life. So they can escape from these two sufferings when it comes to the Brahma world, like the higher heavenly realm. So there they have long life and less illnesses. So they enjoy their life. They have much of happiness there. But to be able to escape from suffering of formations, the world is released by only by Nibbana, which means the deathless, which means the unconditioned phenomenon. When one develops mindfulness, more precisely the Eightfold Path, they can reach to the unconditioned nature. It is all about knowing the things as they really are. They are seeing how the body and mind functions and how these conditions brings up this arising and passing so that one do not attach to the life. They do not attach to the body or to the mind. So with the support of that knowledge, they see it is arising and it is passing. And after they pass away, when they die, so they enter to the unconditioned. Here the goal is Nibbana. In other words, it's the deathless. Now, to escape from suffering of formation, one need to realize Nibbana. But we can escape from suffering of pain and suffering of change for certain extent if we be reborn in a higher realm, higher worldly realm. Even in a human world, if we able to have a long life, so we can escape from that too. But we still are conditioned wherever we go, no matter we born in a heavenly realm or human world or any other lower realm, they all have the formations. So they all have the conditioned nature. So because of that, there is some certain amount of danger. Now, mindfulness in Buddhism is a practice that awakens us to the conditioned and ever-changing nature of our existence. As we develop mindfulness, we start to see clearly how life is made up of fleeting thoughts, feelings, and sensations, all conditioned by various causes. This insight helps us directly realize that there is no permanent, unchanging self. Instead, life is a process of constant arising and passing away, revealing the truth of impermanence and non-self. When we understand this, our consciousness detach from this suffering because of seeing, arising and passing. That's the higher knowledge that we are seeking through the mindfulness. So that's why we need to develop mindfulness to open up ourselves to our reality of life. Does that mean we become locks and stones? No. We start to love the world without bound, without holding anything back because we understood for ourselves that everything is changing due to conditions. But still, we try to understand without a practice. We try to understand these teachings without its unique practices. So it can be sometimes terrifying because we have a misconception on our life that everything is permanent, everything is a source of satisfaction, and everything has a self. But when we meditate and when we develop that mindfulness, we can know for ourselves, oh, this life has the conditioning factor, which brings everything. Now let's dive into the establishment of mindfulness. So our next topic. Now, I think you might get some understanding about why we need to be mindful and why we need mindfulness. So it is for getting the correct knowledge about our life and to realize that everything is conditioned. Now, among the teachings, so we can find that the mindfulness has the nature of non-distraction, which means apilapana lakkhana sati. Mindfulness or sati in Buddhist language, it is sati. Mindfulness has the nature of non-distraction. So the once we become mindful, our mind will be not non-distraction. It will not be distracted by anything. The mind will be always balanced. So that's the nature of mindfulness. Say that we become mindful with our breathing. So as a result, our mind will be still, our mind will be peaceful. So that is the function of mindfulness. It is the one of the nature of mindfulness, non-distraction. But for that, there is a basis. To develop mindfulness, we need a basis for that. Its basis is the four foundations of mindfulness. Now, the four foundations of mindfulness, or in other words, four establishments of mindfulness, means firmly grounding or stabilizing mindfulness in specific areas. It refers to cultivating consistent, focused awareness in these four domains: body, feelings, mind, and mental phenomena. So we seek something to establish our mindfulness. There should be some kind of a ground or domain to establish our mindfulness. Otherwise, we can't develop it or increase that mindfulness. To be able to increase and develop mindfulness, we need some kind of a object. Now that object is the body. We can become mindful with our body, and we can become mindful with our feelings, and even we can be mindful with our own mind, and we can be mindful with our mental phenomena, which means mental objects. So we learn this about these four grounds to the mindfulness in future sessions in more detail, but we'll simply here we'll get an outline about this. So for an example, let's say, my friends, let's say we focus our mindfulness on our body as an object, or feelings, mind, or mental phenomena. So in the body, we try to observe our physical sensations and activities, such as our breathing or our movements of our body. So it is one ground that we can develop our mindfulness. Based on that breathing, we can develop our mindfulness furthermore to be able to see what? Simply to be able to see how the breathing arises and passes. That's what we need to see. Then we will realize there is no permanent, a core, solid thing in the breathing. It's always in a constant change. And we will observe pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations to develop our mindfulness. And again, we will observe the state of mind, such as we try to observe whenever our mind changes, like our mind has anger and sometimes loving kindness. Sometimes we have contentment, sometimes greed. So we try to know this through our mindfulness. It is another way that we can establish mindfulness and seek for further development. Again, the mental phenomena. Here we have contemplating mental objects and teachings. So there is a specific way Buddha taught that you should look at your mind, especially about your mental phenomena, whatever arise in mind. So we are trying to see our mind through the teachings, so it can take us to the higher knowledge. So these are the four basic grounds we can develop our mindfulness: body, feelings, mind, and mental phenomena. So next question, how we should focus our mindfulness. Now for this, I have one teaching I would like to share with you while our Buddha was alive. So Buddha said this. Now in that time, our Supreme Buddha was living among the Sumbas, the people in that place called Sumbas, where there was a town of the Sumbas named Sedaka. So the Sedaka was the city. There the Blessed One addressed monks, bhikkhus means monks, like this. So they replied, Venerable Sir, the Blessed One said this, bhikkhus, suppose that on hearing the most beautiful girl of the land, the most beautiful girl of the land, a great crowd of people would assemble. Now that most beautiful girl of the land would dance exquisitely and sing exquisitely. Now, say, my friends, now if we hear that to our city there is a most beautiful girl is coming, such as a, let's say, an actress or celebrity is visiting our city, so every people will gather there to see her. Then a man would come along, wishing to live, not wishing to die, wishing for happiness, averse to suffering, such as ourselves. So we don't like to die, we like to live. We don't like to suffer, we like happiness. A man like that comes to this place. Someone would say to him, Good man, you must carry around this bowl of oil filled to the brim, between the crowd and the most beautiful girl of the land. Now, say, my friends, if somebody were to give a man kind of a bowl filled with oil to the brim. So, if that bowl inclines somewhere, like incline here and there, or if we move that, easily the oil can split and fall down. So, a person give this man a bowl full of this oil, and he asks, you should carry this bowl between this crowded place, between this beautiful girl and this crowd. Now, usually when a beautiful girl is, when she's dancing and singing songs, it takes our attraction. So it takes our attention. Our senses will chase after that. Our eyes, ears, nose, and our body will take that direction. So it can easily happen. Now the Buddha say, a man with a drawn sword will be following right behind you. And wherever you spill even a little of it, right there, he will fell your head. While the man is taking this bowl of oil filled up to the brim through this crowd, there is one more man drawing a sword, following right behind him. And whenever if he spill even a little drop of that oil, he will cut off his head. Now Buddha asks, what do you think, monks? Would that man stop attending to that bowl of oil and out of negligence turns his attention outwards? Will that ever happen? because he know that the man is following him, but there are so much enjoyment there outside. But would that man turn his head and look what's going on there? No, no, Venerable Sir. The monks replied, no, Venerable Sir. Now the Buddha say, I have made up this simile, monks, in order to convey a specific meaning. This here is the meaning. Now the Buddha say, I gave this as a simile to teach you very special point. What is that? The bowl of oil filled to the brim. This is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Now the Buddha say something that one need to protect so much hardly, so much dedicatedly, with so much determination, is the mindfulness directed to the body, same as the bowl of oil filled with brim. So one need to guard the mindfulness directed to the body, which means, friends, while we sit down to meditate, say that we are trying to be mindful with our body, for an example, with our breathing, our mind will easily wander. It is same as now the Buddha say that woman stands for the sense pleasures such as sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Same way that men want to look at that ongoing incident which is happening with the crowded people. The same way, while we are going to observe our breathing, our mind goes off the topic and go and latch into this beautiful, attractive sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. The same way that when this man go to see this beautiful girl in the country, so everybody crowded. So we have such a wanting in our mind. We need to go to this sensory enjoyment and indulge with that. But if we were to indulge too much in that, and if we were to wander into them. So it is same as a man is following with a drawn sword. So we might not be able to meditate properly. We might not be able to focus our mindfulness to our breathing. So here Buddha say, you should protect your mindfulness directed to the body the same way that a man is protecting a bowl of oil filled to the brim. Therefore, monks, you should train yourself thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. Make it our vehicle. Make it our basis. Stabilize it. Exercise ourselves in it and fully perfect it. Thus practitioners, should you train yourself. Now he say, you should as soon as possible establish your mindfulness to your body. Not only establish your mindfulness, but you should protect that with so much dedication. You should protect that mindfulness because it is the time that you can develop your mindfulness and see through the mindfulness about the reality of your life. But for a better or worse, the most distracted thing or the most powerful block to develop mindfulness, as we learned in our last session, is our desire for the sensory experience. This keeps us away from mindfulness. But once if we come back to our body, to our breathings, we can develop our mindfulness. It does not stop there. We can develop that. We can expand our mindfulness with the support of establishing mindfulness on our body. For an example, let's say we are not always being mindful. We can't meditate on our breathing meditation always. But when we are off the cushion, we can establish our mindfulness is still to the body. Buddha does not say that you should abandon your mindfulness, but he say you should always be mindful. There should not a time that we should abandon being mindful. So we can still carry on our mindfulness together with us. So how we meditate off the cushion? So we can be mindful of our movements in our body. Just as the way that we move our body, we can keep establishing mindfulness to our body. So it brings us the final goal, the detachment from this body, from these feelings. So it needs more explanations. So my friends, we will dive into more teachings in our later sessions. I'll pause here because I don't like to put many concepts and many teachings right in the spot. I would like to stop here because we don't want to be more distracted with so many information. So let's try to get some conclusion about this discussion we had today. Let's go back. Okay, we learned about there are three types of sufferings: suffering of pain, suffering of change, and suffering of formations. And we learned that suffering of pain is mental and physical pain. And again, suffering of change is that ending of all the joyful experiences. Again, suffering of formations means that suffering which arises from the conditioned phenomena. And we learned that even the neutral feeling can bring us unsatisfaction because it's constantly changing. And we also learned that we can escape from suffering of pain and change when we reborn in a higher realm and when we get less illness and long life. But to be able to escape from suffering of formation, we need to enter to the Nibbana, the deathless. And we also learned that we develop mindfulness because that we need to know about the changing, because it should not always be remain as a teaching or as a concept. We need to explore into our life and see, is it true or is it false? And we also learn that we don't become like solid logs and stones after seeing that there is no self in us, but we become more loving and more kindful to the world. And we learned the establishments of mindfulness. There are four establishments so that we can develop our mindfulness furthermore. First is the body, second, the feelings, third, mind, and the fourth, mental phenomena. We will explore these things in the future sessions. And also we learned how we should focus mindfulness. That is same as Bhayasimini Buddha say that when a beautiful woman is dancing and singing in the city, so everybody gather there, but there is a boy who wanted to go through this place, but a person gave a or bowl of oil filled up to the brim. So he had to take it through this place. While he was doing, so there is a man drawing a sword. So out of so much dedication, he'll protect that. He do not break his attention. Same way Buddha say you should be attentive to your body. So yes, my friends. So yeah, Buddha's advice was that you should develop your mindfulness directed to the body and you should well grounded on that. So this is the teaching for today. Hope you enjoy and hope you learn new things. So thank you so much for being here. May we all have the great opportunity to understand this Dharma and be able to liberate ourselves from suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.